Hi, and thanks to all of you who went and followed me over to Rumble after I lost the YouTube. I still don't know how that happened, but at the end of the day, it got me to Rumble, and a lot of people actually prefer the freedom there. But YouTube, I'll continue with as well under my name, Josefa Van Roy. So here we are. This week was a follow-on from like a collection of the themes that have been touched about, because it is a continuation and it keeps revealing itself in that way, which is why I love to share it, because it's like you get your fingers on the pulse to see the movement and the bringing forth, because this week was very much involved with the need or choosing to move, and how that gets complicated in terms of finding that stillness where that choice comes from. So both very young and more elderly had different reasons for not moving, but in not moving, life doesn't take place and there is no moving forward. Whether it is you're stuck in the silence of it as a child and you end up not moving, which, as Steiner says, it's the movement of children and their vitality that builds the will in their body. And the real damage to that, if there isn't that movement, doesn't turn up until your 40s or 50s or even later, where that desire to move isn't built in your body, and it's like the living dead. I found it interesting that when I reloaded the videos onto Rumble, that the one that was manifest, death, life, was not really that checked up. And the basis of this week really is basically that feel the fear and do it anyway, but that fear is an excitement when you find that stillness. There is something in the stillness that says, yes, I feel alive in that. And then take that choice to be alive. I'm not saying, like just throw yourself out there and do it, even though being frivolous was one of the discussions we had in the past about, come on, be more frivolous, enjoy life. But it's the same theme to some extent, the choice to move. So with that choice to move, which was leaving things in the past, or if you're a parent of young children, move, do it with them, build in that activity with them. It's very important for their future. But when we do get older, to sit or to say, I can't do that anymore, so life isn't worth living, I sit. There's a lot of illness and non-movement and pain that comes from that as well. So those two are there. But then on the other hand, there are those who moved too deeply. It's so natural for them to go that deep. And because the veil is so thin, sometimes to go too deep means to take on other people's patterns that then become yours, and then it's confusing to feel where that self is, because it's got mixed up with others. And some even showed up, which I will discuss a bit later, where past lives still have such an influence in terms of how we feel and what we are still wanting to take this next move forward to in our life that we came here for. And it's a massive thing to be able to do that, to really clearly move forward, which is what counteracts what happened before as something you want to get clear about. Not an easy gig. So, and also there were people looking for answers and going into their past. And I'm going to begin with that because it was so beautiful how it showed up. So I'm hoping this can be seen. So what showed up is, all right, here we are. We have this we have this question, and we're looking and looking and looking into the past, whether it's generational or whether it's cultural, or where was it, where is it that we can correct this. So what a lot of that actually showed up as is migraines, headaches, because there is a point where the dots go to the beginning of creation, and the beginning of creation were incredible choices, and some of those choices at the beginning of creation was to stand separate from unity. That's brave. It's a virtual death to bring life. And again, that theme of, death just means a new life. So what it showed was interesting, because it's like it said, look, there are dots that we cannot really join, but eventually we come to a place where all these streams took place. These streams started to take place. And what it showed up from there was that these streams, the energy comes through to help create these streams that we understand as the toroidal situation. But the real power comes through there that moves into the toroidal. And again, these patterns show that these things have been created a long, long time ago, and we're not going to get to the bottom of it. But all different choices were made by us as a collective, and hence we have ended up where we have ended up through choice. So the only way forward really is to come to a choice decision through this to make our next choice, not built from the past, but how we prefer life to be, or in the stillness of ourselves, how we find something that says, this is my choice going forward. I'm going to say enough of that. This is how I'm going to move forward. So from there, it went to beings who were in this pattern and in absolute dire situations. What has happened during the week, which I find very interesting, is people are taking stock of things they haven't wanted to look at for a long time. What's happening to their finances, what's happening to their paperwork, what's happening to all sorts of stuff that people have to meet that they just haven't been able to meet because they were drowning. And where they found the strength to come to the surface and actually be able to look what's going on and take care of it, because there's a sense going on that if I don't, there is no moving forward. There seems to be something that says, I know I'm drowning, but I have to take care of this. And in that, I know I'll be fine going forward. Where did that come from? But that's there this week as well. So some who were in those dire situations couldn't work out where the energy of okayness was going to come from. And in that, it showed, it's interesting because there's that shape again, but we have a tree here. And like we've lost the connection to the original beginning of that first impulse to individuate, and that is our process, is to individuate, and to individuate is to love yourself and see yourself as the most precious thing, that this life is such a gift for you to unfold and enjoy the experience of, which means feeling the fear and doing it anyway. It's like saying, I'm prepared to die to that, to live in this. That's that's the ongoing process. But what showed up here was wanting things, wanting fruits up here, and where are they going to come from, and it's not happening. And what showed up is that this tree has roots that go so deep, so deep, that we don't know. We've lost contact that these roots that care for us, this nourishment that's there for us, is very deep. And without that, this tree, this beautiful, huge tree that we are, is being nourished from a deep source within. And to feel a sense, or to connect with a sense of being taken care for, that knows better than what you do. And again, in the silence of that, one can make contact with that. Because we are amazing, amazing trees with very deep roots that nourish. But it's going to that still point that knows that that's happening, because the proof is there, the tree is there, and the fruits will grow. So part of that really brought up the discussion of being able to make those concerns nothing, because the only process is moving forward, which many were doing, which was remarkable. To feel like you're drowning, bring your head up out of the water and take a breath and say, I've got to deal with this, because otherwise I am going to drown. But then to be able to, which is extraordinary, to be able to make it nothing and make that move forwards. We hear that people who do drown, those who relax, actually survive, and those that panic, I'm going to drown, I'm going to drown, I'm going to drown, do. Because it's unsustainable without relaxing. So from there it moved very much into those who are extraordinarily capable and are pearls, they're born as pearls. But when you're a pearl, you do so much for others that you can forget yourself. And that kind of misses the point. So if we continuously give to others and it doesn't come from that silent place that says it's appropriate to give here, we end up enabling instead. And in the enabling and the taking on, we also drown and we lose ourself. We may be alive, but we're not alive because we're not in the self. So some had amazing projects, and their dedication to it, I don't understand how they even stay with it over time. But the process that showed up was, here's the being, and this process of being capable is there. And in the process of working deeply with it and bringing it through, it expands itself to a place that is excelling. It's excelling, it's honing its skill, it's honing itself, it's honing its expression. What then showed up was that wasn't good enough. We are now pressurizing ourselves because we're not there yet. Then we are tired, we are sick, we don't feel like ourselves anymore, we're getting anxious, we can't breathe because we've lost the self. We've gone into mind. And the mind then goes into the anxiety because you're not seeing self as good enough or enough. I mean, this is enough, and it's the opportunity in that, in being centered, to expand it. But to think you have to push it and it's got to be more and it isn't there is quite extraordinary. It's equivalent to having your life and you're in your body and there's a ghost of a body next to you It's like a shell of potentiality. And you feel you have to be that also. Now, how are you going to embody that when you already have more than enough on your plate, which means go quiet, be still, and make the choice that you feel yourself in, not continuously pushing yourself to. There's a difference between unfolding yourself that is coming from self as a choice, yeah? That's very different to thinking you're not there yet, I've got to get there, and then pushing yourself, because you'll end up in mind. And being in mind is not a still point, because the mind never stops. It's not designed to. So one being actually had a like the world on their shoulders, literally the world on their shoulders. That sense of being there for the world and being concerned for the world. And a lot of harm comes from that, because we, in being ourselves, radiate energetically to the world the joy of being self and the joy of taking that risk. It may not work, but it feels true to me. I'm going to give it a go. There's actually never a loss in that, because we always learn. We always learn. It may be right, it may be wrong, it may work out, it may not work out. But the standing in it, which I call riding the board on surf and staying with it, is exhilarating. But not if it's coming from this huge pressure. It's like we're dealing so much with that huge pressure, and all we're really wanting is to have that sense of self, but can't get to it. And it takes a quietness. It actually takes the quietness which can say no to something, so that, which is a death. No to that means life in my next choice. That feels true to the thinking heart rather than the thinking mind. So another aspect that showed up was more to do with those past lives that still infiltrate, that aren't quite finished. And some of the aspects that beings come into this world with, it's quite extraordinary that they're here to work that out. But it is a process of separating from that. But when it radiates so strongly as a moral value within yourself, it's very hard to stand separate and say, well, this is me going forward. This is the choice I make, because those, I'll show you the pattern that showed up. So here is that which we bring in with ourselves. And some still have a connection. It permeates. And some of these connections literally go back to the original unity of all, and that aspect of separating off and having a thought separate to that unity. And if that thought had not arrived, we would not be having these experiences. So these need to be worked out. And the only way to work them out is to be able to see it and then make choices in this life. It almost looks like a nerve abscess where, in fact, nothing ever touches the other, yeah? But they do communicate. They do communicate via chemicals. And these cells of lives can touch too much, and that's nerve pain. That's not really great. So that's another pattern that may be interesting for you to ponder on. But as I said, you know, this week really was one about death and choice. But I'm not going to call it death and choice because nobody looks at the videos when death shows up. And it's the most profound aspect. Death is the ability to say no, so that life can show up in the yeses. If you can't say no, you actually can't say yes. Because what does yes mean if you can't say no? And it's an individuating process. So the last bit that really revealed itself was the tiredness people are feeling around having relationships, bothering to have connections, the confusion of the sexuality and all that stuff. It's got tired, which in itself is a bit of a death. Yet it showed up in spirit that what they would really like to experience before transitioning over is to have relationship. Relationship does not come from a list. Relationship does not come from, I want them to look a particular way or be a particular age or whatever that is. To really have relationships where you can sit with somebody and really feel comfortable. To know you can share your thoughts. My favourite poem is by Goethe, and it goes like this. Oh, the comfort, the incredible comfort of feeling safe with a person, having to neither weigh your thoughts or your words, but pour them all out just as they are, chaff and grain together, knowing that a faithful hand will take and sift them, keep what is worth keeping, and with a breath of kindness, blow the rest away. I saw that on a card when I was in grade 6, and being a migrant, it made such an impact on me because that was not my experience, as may be the same case for several of you out there. So relationship is a desire, but to do that we have to have a death to all the past ones and be open to that which is still to show up without intent. Be open to all and then have your yes or no's in place in relation to that, which is how we progress forward to that. So it came up a card today for us collectively, and appropriately it's called choice. Stop making decisions from a fear-based childhood. No choice belief. Childhood realities have taught you a great deal, but it is time to let them go and be an empowered adult. It's time to take charge of your life and make purposeful choices. Now, as an adult, you never ever have no choice. Be prepared to look at all options. There are often more choices than you think. And this brings me to a thought many years ago. Those of you who are kinesiologists, we've got the behavioural barometer and it's got choice at the top, no choice at the bottom. And we were basically taught that we want to be in choice, not in no choice. And I thought, I'm going to test up. Where do beings really want to come from? Where do they want to come from? And it said, no choice. And it was like, what do you mean no choice is where people want to come from? But it's actually true. If I have 10 roses in front of me and someone says, pick a rose, I would go, oh, that isn't a choice, it's that one. That's the feeling we all want, that which is so core. It's not a choice. It's all you want to do. And you will find that in the stillness. And there's great life in that. And May you have a wonderful, wonderful, exciting week in life. Much love.